This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I'm really excited. I have a good friend of mine on here. She is an amazing young woman. Nisha Bacchus, a founder of Bacchus Law Firm, received her Juris Doctorate from Nova Southeastern University's Shepard Broad Law Center. While attending Nova, Miss Bacchus was an active member of the American Trial Association and earned a scholarship through the Florida Bar for her pro bono work through the community. Prior to attending law school, Miss Bacchus graduated with honors from the University of Central Florida with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and a minor in Forensic Science. After earning her JD, Miss Bacchus passed the Florida bar exam and was subsequently admitted to practice in federal court in the Southern District of Florida. Shortly thereafter, Miss Bacchus started her own law practice, Law Office of Nisha Bacchus, PA, and several years later co-founded Bacchus Law Firm and the Florida's Women's Law Center. She now handles a wide range of complex family law litigation issues and personal injury claims. My goodness, that is a mouthful. How are you, Miss Bacchus?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is truly my pleasure. I'm glad I was able to get you on because you are, I mean that very truthfully, you're a remarkable young woman. You've done so much. Your background doesn't say to me, I'm going to go right into being an attorney. So there's got to be a story here. Give me the 2 to 5 minute version of how we got to you being a badass attorney.
You're right. Originally, I did not want to be an attorney, and I ended up becoming a trial attorney above all things. But it started off in college. I went to the University of Central Florida, graduated from high school, and college was never an option. It was you're going. It was just a matter of where you're going. So I didn't want to go too far away from home because I'm very close, tight-knit family. I have sisters, and I really had never spent substantial time away from my family. So college was the first time that I was leaving home. So I ended up going to UCF. It's in Central Florida, about 2.5, 3 hours away from my parents' home. And when I started college, I was super pumped. I was an art major. I was going to be an interior designer, help people put together their homes. That's what I wanted to do. If not, I wanted to do something in textile, fashion design. And I came home beginning of my sophomore year of college. We had to declare our majors. I'm so excited to tell my parents that I've been taking 2 semesters of art classes and art history and colors and all this stuff. And I get home and I look at my father, who's a doctor and from the Caribbean, not even first generation here. I look at my mom, who's an accountant, same thing, not even first generation here from the Caribbean. 2 very strict parents, where education is everything. And I'm like, they're like, what's your major? I'm an art major. And there's just this dead silence. And my dad was like, absolutely not. And I had to kind of start over again. And I thought, well, what can I do? What is something else that I could do where I could make them happy, but still fulfill a passion that I have? And so I said, all right, I'm going to do forensic science. I'm going to be like CSI. And so I switched my major actually to forensic science, ultimately graduated with a bachelor's in criminal justice, a minor in forensic, and I actually have a minor in art because I took so many art classes prior to switching. And when I remember senior year, they brought us into the office where you could meet with like a career counselor, and you take this test, and this test produced careers that they think that you would be good at. And I remember thinking to myself, awesome, I'm going to find out, this is where I'm going to find out what I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And I take the test, it spits out a form, and I'm not kidding. One of the first things was a toll booth operator.
Okay.
I was like, well, that's not going to work. Although I love people and I could greet people, but, and one of the other options was a probation officer working in the jail every day. And I remember calling my dad and I was crying. And at that point I felt extremely lost. I felt really confused. None of the options that came back on this form were remotely helpful or anything that I was remotely interested in. So I took a year off. I moved back home. I got a job working in a law firm that did title work and construction litigation. And that's how it all started. I started off at the front desk, a receptionist answering the phone. And then it slowly, my responsibilities slowly grew with the firm. I ended up doing title closings for them, working closely with their clients, helping out when people were calling out sick. Sometimes people would quit. I'd help fill their job positions. And the attorney there pulled me aside and he's like, you really should go to law school. And I said, well, I'm not really interested in that. I'm just interested in making money. And he's like, I'll tell you, the long term, if you go to law school, you'll have more options available to you. He's like, I really think you have what it takes to go to law school. You should do this. So I came back to him and I said, well, how about this? I really just want a raise. I have no interest in going to law school. And he actually denied my raise. He told me no. And I went behind his back, started applying for jobs everywhere. And all I knew was title work. So these lending companies were calling him for references and he wouldn't give me a good reference because he kept saying to me, listen, I'm telling you, you need to go to law school. This is what you need to do. And I sat for the LSAT, took it, got in, and that's the rest is history. And he's still one of my really good friends to this day. I call him all the time for mentorship, and that's how it all started.
That's interesting. I mean, I think of, two things. Why I chuckled, I imagine just the most designer fashion, like you are looking all decked out being a toll booth operator. So now that is burned into my memory, which is awesome. But no, you know what I like about this is you're getting pushed a little bit where somebody, not that you're dealing with complacency, but you're looking for the answer and somebody's giving it to you. You just didn't like that answer at the time. I think that's really interesting because that is not your personality to me, because you are very clear on what you want, but it maybe in your formidable years, your early 20s, you weren't sure. That's really interesting to me. So pro bono work is in the intro, and I know we're going to dig into other parts of it, but why pro bono work? Why is that so important to you? I mean, shoot, you won an award for your pro bono work. Where did that's pretty awesome.
In law school, one of the really great things about Nova is they had so many different options for scholarship availabilities at the school. Because the school is fairly close to downtown Fort Lauderdale, they have a lot of judges also that are professors. So the nice thing about attending Nova is that you get a great introduction to the legal community, insight. You meet a lot of judges, lawyers. They're very connected in the community. And they posted this scholarship availability through the Florida Bar for pro bono work. And one of the facets of the scholarship was working with children who had special needs, but who were being put through the regular school system. So because the public school didn't want to create additional classrooms. So it's been a while, but I believe what it was like one teacher to every 10 special needs child at the time. And if the classroom exceeded 10 special needs children, then another classroom had to be open. So what was happening is a lot of the schools were pushing through students who actually had educational needs, putting them in regular classrooms, but these children were getting picked on, they were getting bullied, they were getting left behind, they were failing, they were having to repeat classes. Instead of the school coming and saying, hey, we need additional funding, let's create these additional classrooms. So I worked on the committee that basically checked the public school to make sure that these children who had special needs were getting the attention that they needed and the additional classrooms and the teachers, and the school was getting funded. So that's what I worked on. And it was extremely fulfilling because at that point I felt like I was representing the children and who don't have a voice, right? So I got to work with the children. I got to meet their parents. I got to hear their stories and how their kids were progressing or not progressing in school. When we got new classrooms open, we would stay in touch with the parents to see how their kids were doing. And just the success stories were so rewarding. So that's how I started doing pro bono work early on in my career.
And it's something you still practice today, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. One of the things that I am so passionate about is giving back. I think that there comes a point in your life where you acquire all this success, you have all these mentors, you have, whether it's financial or otherwise, all these gains, your business grows. And if I'm honest, it's my community that's fueled that success, right? Because I represent people in my community. And I would find it selfish, in my opinion, to take from my community and not give back to the people in my community who really need it. Not everybody that calls my office can afford legal services. So whether it's me reducing my rate or having my associate reduce their rate, or even just helping somebody who just really needs help. For me, I sell my time. That's what I'm selling, is my time. So that's what I'm giving somebody. But that 2, 3, or 40 hours that I put into a case could change someone's life. So for me, it's just really important that the community that has helped me build my business, I give back to that community in some capacity.
Well, Mom and Dad, you did good. She's definitely giving back. I love that. So I want to go back. Somebody that wasn't necessarily wanting to even go to law school, then comes out and pretty young decides to start her own law firm. So you just got out of law school and it was just sunshine and rainbows. Everything was great.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It was probably one of the scariest things that I've ever done. But at the time I did it, I wasn't scared. Looking back at what I did now, being 10 years out, I don't know what I was thinking. But at the time, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I mean, if I'm honest, I graduated, I take the bar, but it's all theoretical stuff you learn in law school. It's not practicum. Law school is nothing like medical school, where you have rotations and you actually get to practice medicine. You have case studies, you have patients there that you're watching. Law school is the complete opposite. You graduate, and unless you did an internship, which you're not required to do, at least in Florida, you really don't know what you're doing. So I tried to intern as much as I could throughout law school. I didn't pass the bar right away. So what ended up happening was I spent about a year interning for a criminal defense attorney who's an amazing criminal defense attorney and one of my mentors to this day. And that's really how I learned how to build my practice. And he was the person that said to me, listen, you should hang your own shingle. You've got what it takes, hang your own shingle, bring in your own clients, and I'll help you and I'll guide you. And that's pretty much how it all started.
So when do you break off on your own? Because that's pretty remarkable at your age to do that. And you're a female I'm guessing, a fairly male-dominated industry at that time, or maybe it still is. I don't know. But you break off and create your own law firm. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that is not the common play right out of the gates.
No. And at the time, criminal defense has always, I think, been a fairly male-dominated field, at least in my experience. And so being a young female coming into the scene in private practice, especially, most people that do criminal defense start at the public defender's office, or they go work for the state attorney's office and they prosecute for, 2 to 3 years, figure out trial, jury selection, all that stuff. And I just went straight into private defense. I don't believe in luck. I believe in blessings. So I feel like I got very blessed with the people that I met along my journey. One of the, I've come to realize, blessings that came out of not passing the bar right away was there was a year of my life that I spent under some amazing mentors. I mean, I had the ability to shadow these attorneys who had been practicing for 25 years, 30 years at the time, who were getting all the really big cases in Broward County. And at that time, we had a huge pill mill epidemic going on in Broward County, Florida. So there was a lot of just federal drug busts going on, local drug busts going on with all the pill mills. And we were getting co-defendants. So my mentors would take, like the bigger guys, and I would take the smaller fish, but I would sit in on the trials and I would just watch them and absorb all of that information. And so by the time I got out and I started my own practice, I felt like although I wasn't actually practicing when I was studying for the bar, right? Because I wasn't licensed. I felt like I had a year under my belt because all I did on my downtime was shadow them in trials. So I listened to all their objections. I listened to jury selection, opening, closings, directs, crosses. I did all their legal research and writing and drafting. So I felt like I had a year of just foundational work in and of itself before I went off on my own.
I hope everybody listening to this, I don't care what field you're in, this is called practice. You don't necessarily get paid to practice, but it is getting you ready for the game. So you kind of slipped something by there, by the way. Didn't pass the bar the first time?
Didn't pass it the second time either.
Okay. Now, as much as I love the story of success, I think the rise is so important. I'm imagining after preparing to pass the bar, this has got to be I talk about fear to failure all the time, or fear to freedom all the time. What is that process look like for you? Because obviously failing that test, that had to be kind of kicked, a pretty good kick to the pills, like in my case, or a kick. It sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely not pleasant.
So how do you get back up from that? What did that look like for you?
So I will tell you that my first encounter with true failure was not passing the bar. Throughout my life, success was something that I felt that I was entitled to. I danced for 15 years. I was a prima ballerina. I went to an art school. I was part of a ballet company. I performed. School, extremely scholastic. Never had an issue with academics, always graduating top of my class, finishing top of my class, AP classes. I get to college, it's the same thing. I'm graduating top of my class. I almost came to expect success. I never expected failure because I just didn't think that I was really capable of it on that level, right? So I get to law school now and I join every organization. I'm on every committee. I'm on the trial team. I get first place for the first time for NOVA in probably decades for my trial advocacy skills. I was number one out of 180 advocates. It was just, I felt like everything I touched went to gold. I was successfully invincible. So now I go to take the bar, and that was the first time I had failed something huge in my life. And it was this block that if I didn't pass it, I couldn't have my career as an attorney, right? So there was no getting around it. There was no sneaking under it. It was something that I had to literally overcome. And I think the first time that I failed, I was actually in disbelief. The results come out on the Florida Supreme Court website, and you are assigned a number. So it's anonymous. So they mail you this number. It's like 10-digit number that you're assigned. It's your test number. It becomes basically your tattoo while you're studying for the bar and you're applying, and everything you submit to the bar for admission has this number on it to keep everything anonymous. So when you take the exam, again, this number goes on your exam. Well, when they post the results get posted on the Florida Supreme Court website, and it's a PDF. So like everybody knows the morning it's being released, the test score. So you're just sitting there like refreshing. The website's crashing, refreshing. And then finally the link pops. You click it and you just start scrolling for your number. Well, Florida has two sections. So you either are pass, and the third column is your ultimate pass or fail. Depending on what your score is, you could pass, fail, pass, or fail, pass, or you can fail overall. So I get to my number, I'm scrolling with my finger across, and I'm like, pass, fail. I'm like, fail. And I just went numb. I just went completely numb. I mean, there's just I couldn't cry, I couldn't breathe, I mean, my parents are like on hold on the phone, waiting for me to call. I refresh again. I get out of the website, refresh again. I look my number up, which I had memorized by this point, right? Yeah. And I was like, I failed. And I was I was in disbelief. It took me a couple hours to realize what had happened. And the worst part was like, I'm watching all my friends post on Facebook, pass, and, so-and-so Esquire. and everybody's changing the end of their name and, putting their pass. And I'm like, I can't post anything. I can't, people are texting, they're calling, and what do I say? So I first had to reconcile with myself that I had failed it before I could tell anybody. And slowly I started telling my close friends, and people were just actually in disbelief. I was in disbelief for a really long time. When I fail, they send you your test score and stuff. And I had actually failed by 30 points. It wasn't like a small fail. I had actually failed by 30 points. So I've never been a great standardized test taker. So I thought, all right, I'll just take it the second time and I'll be just fine. And I was angry. I remember the second time when I took it, I was so angry. I remember studying and just being angry the whole time. I would break markers, the highlighters, just, just a like quick punch to the paper with the highlighter. And I was so angry. There's just no other way to put it the second time I was studying. And all that anger, I failed it by 1 point.
Oh.
That's what anger got me.
Wow.
I failed it by 1 point.
All right. So what's the emotion at this point? Now you just have me captivated because you're breaking markers. Holy cow. What's happening on this third go around?
So the third go around, I said, God, this is it. I said, you know my strengths and you know my weaknesses. This is it. If this is what you want for my life and for my path, this is it. Because I have nothing else at this point. At this point, my student loans are starting to kick in. I'm almost out of money. I end up having to take out a Florida bar loan. And which there's a funny story about that I would actually like to share with you, that came to me the other day. I've had so many revelations before I digress too much, but I've had so many positive revelations about my failure. Now I see all the blessings of my failure, but it's been 10 years. And in 10 years, I'm still getting blessings from my failure, which is, it's crazy, but I'll share that with you. But so I'm studying now for the third time. I have to buy all the study material again, which is so expensive. And this time I'm like, instead of getting angry, why hire somebody to come on my team to give me support? Because now I have no self-confidence. I have anxiety. Everything's on the line. I've taken out a bar loan for like $15,000. I've gotten all new study material. So I hire my Florida bar coach, my tutor, to help me with this exam. And he's just amazing. He's still in my life to this day. I refer anybody to him that is having problems with the bar. He is an amazing human being. And he worked with me diligently the third time I studied. I had really bad anxiety. And I found a therapist who taught me how to meditate, taught me how to breathe and control my breathing I wanted to do everything holistically. So she taught me basically when my heart rate starts to escalate, how to breathe and relax myself, calm myself. Because I was just determined to get through without having to be on any medication or do anything like that. I wanted to do everything holistically. And I remember I walked into the examination room, the examination room in and of itself is one of the most intimidating rooms. So it's in Tampa, the Florida bar is in Tampa, the examination, and it's in the convention center, downtown Tampa. And it's this huge room. I mean, imagine Costco or BJ's or, Lowe's or Home Depot, just empty with desks that are made of plywood that have splints sticking out of them. So you're basically getting like splinted every time you move your arm across the desk. Rows and rows and rows and rows of these just plywood desks with two plastic chairs, one on either end. And there's these huge clocks suspended from the ceiling and they count backwards. And just everything's alphabetical, your number, everything's by your number again. And so I walk in the room, I find my chair, I sit down, I start my breathing, just like we had practiced. So I got there early. So I did about 5 minutes of my breathing to get my heart rate to calm down. And the proctor was like, go. So the clock with this like bright red light starts going backwards and everybody's just like, you have to open the booklet. And it's just the whole thing is just in and of itself, you have to be prepared for the process, right? And I remember I got done with the first half, and this time I was actually smarter. I got the room that was connected to the convention center, so I could just walk across. I could eat lunch alone. I could relax. So I finished the first half of the exam. I walked back to my room, and I called my mom, and I said to her, "Mom, I just crushed that." She's like, "Okay, honey, let's just, let's just take it easy. Like, you still have another day, half day to go." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm telling you, I crushed it." And she's like, okay, let's just, you still got another half day. I think they just, they just knew that they didn't want me to be heartbroken anymore. So anyways, I go back, take the second half of the exam, and I walked out, and I just remember I saw my tutor. He was waiting for students outside the examination room. And I looked at him and I go, "I want you to know that I crushed that exam." Like, I felt it in my soul. I had crushed it. And I called my mom. I was like, "Mom, I'm just letting you know I passed." And she's like, "Nish, I bet you did, but let's just wait. Let's just wait. Your father and I are praying. My parents are prayer warriors." And I said, "Okay, I'm just letting you know now. It's done. This is a done deal."
Yeah. Break out the cocktails. Yeah. Let's go. Champagne. Let's go.
We're done. And sure enough, the results came, and I had passed, but I could feel it in my soul. And I just knew, like, at that point, I felt like I had humbled myself. I felt, the anger had dissipated. I had surrendered to the failure. I surrendered to this being my path. I didn't know the reason, but I told myself there's a purpose for this. There's a greater purpose for this. And I have to trust, because God, the universe, my life wouldn't have brought me in this direction if it wasn't meant to be, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to trust the process. And that's how, and I will tell you, looking back now, 10 years out, in 2009, when I graduated law school, the real estate market crashed. That's when all the foreclosures had started and the bankruptcies. The truth is, if I had probably graduated or not graduated, but passed the bar in 2009, I would have taken a job doing foreclosure or bankruptcy, because that was what was trending. And that's where all the firms were hiring. I probably wouldn't have taken a job or started my own practice doing what I really loved. And I would have probably gotten into an area of the law that I didn't feel passionate about. I would have burnt out and then wanted to quit and do something else. So by me failing, I ended up starting my own practice, and from the beginning had flexibility on the types of cases I could take, the type of people I wanted to represent. And I got into litigation, which I fell in love with. And I think that that's what's given me longevity.
That's incredible. And so, full disclosure, guys, she was allegedly nervous about doing this because she's the one usually asking the questions. You're an incredible storyteller, and I've known you personally, but that is awesome. I could sit there and listen to more. I have to ask, though, we're going to switch gears just a little bit. So congrats. That's amazing. I love that story. But the Florida Women's Law Center, what is that all about? This is something that's important to you. So I want to know what that's all about.
So one of my best girlfriends, who's like a sister to me, her and I were literally paddle boarding in the middle of the ocean in the Turks and Caicos. And she was working, she was a partner at a firm at the time. I had just left a big firm. I had actually folded or joined my practice with a bigger practice, and I was going back off on my own. I've always wanted to work at a big firm and get big firm experience. So I did that for a little bit. It was something I've always wanted to do. I helped them grow their criminal defense division, and then I ended up leaving and going back on my own. So this is 2016. So her and I are in the middle of the ocean in the Turks and Caicos, and we're like, why can't we start a law firm together and hang out all day and litigate all day and just have fun with this? Like, why does it have to be torturous? Why can't we have a good time doing what we do, right? We spend all of our time together anyway, so we might as well spend our time together making some money. That would be fantastic. So one of the things that we had discussed was representing women and children who were in need in the community. And so her passion at the time and her vision was, well, let's start the Florida Women's Law Center. So we could have women, young women, who maybe were single moms or who had been home caretakers or stay-at-home moms their whole lives. They want to get empowered and get back into the workforce and be able to provide for themselves or their children. Or maybe they have a child with special needs and they don't know how to get government assistance or help for that child. We would come in and help them and give them advice and direct them on where to go. So really the Florida Women's Law Center initially started off as the pro bono aspect of the firm. But that's where the vision for it came. And then it started just rolling out from there. And I do a lot of work now with women in distress, for instance. I run a lot of the pro bono work that I do through the Florida Women's Law Center. What I will say is I do represent men and women equally. Both deserve equal representation. But I think that for a woman, I think it's important to know that for other strong women to lift up women. There's so much, I've witnessed it in my field, especially, there's so many women that are intimidated or feel threatened by other strong women. And I see them putting other women down, talking bad about them, dogging them. A lot of women in my profession, it's like being a mom is a bad thing. Oh, you have kids. Oh, so you don't really have time, do you? So since when did that become a thing? We can do a lot of things at one time. I always say women are like eagles. We can do multiple things at one time, and so it's really about meeting these women and letting them know, like, I didn't just land here. I have a story and it was a journey and not everything was handed to me. And I had to fight to be where I'm at. I've had bad relationships. I've had struggles with success. I've had to build a practice. I've had to defend my business. It's life, right? And letting them know that if you fight through it and you power through it, you can have whatever it is that you want. And everybody's success is different. So, what's my success is different than your success is different from someone else's success. So just letting them know that whatever their vision for success is, it is possible. You just have to power through it and fight for it.
Well, I like that. I mean, look, ladies, let's lift each other up, man. We don't want to be tearing each other down.
No.
So you've mentioned a couple times mentors. That word has come out of your mouth a couple of times. And actually, prior to this interview, I think one of your mentors called.
He did.
So one of the questions I like to ask a lot is, who has been the most influential person to you in business? Whether you want to give a shout out or not, from these mentors, having that support and that guide is so important. So tell me how that looked for you, because you have said that word at least 3 or 4 times in this interview already.
So I think that throughout whether it's my educational career and now professional career, there's just been different people that have helped in different chapters of my life, right? My parents being fundamentally the first mentors I've ever had. My father being a foreigner coming to this country and creating his medical practice. My dad's been a medical physician for the past 30 years. He has his own medical practice. My mom is a rock. She is his office manager and takes care of all the medical billing and coding. They're an amazing team when I look at them, and watching my dad build a business. I mean, I literally watched my father create his practice and build his practice to what it is today. I had a front row seat. So I know where my drive to be an entrepreneur and have a business comes from my father. So that's the foundation of where my mentorship stemmed from and started. Going into law school, it's Greg Taylor. That's who I worked for at the title company. And Greg is the one that, he's like, you're so much more than what you're giving yourself credit for. He was the person that, of course my parents did that, but I never worked for my parents. I worked for Greg. And so he, we joke around because when I got hired by him, he asked me if I wanted to be salary or hourly. And I asked him if I could call my mom and ask her because I didn't know the difference. I really was so green. I didn't know anything about being a professional or working or being in the, in the job force. And so he made me see something in myself that I probably otherwise wouldn't have seen maybe until way later on in life. And then when I failed the bar, Judge Diaz, Robert Diaz, who's still a county court criminal judge in Broward, helped me get my mentorship with Russell Williams. So I interned with Russell Williams, who's the criminal defense attorney that I shadowed. And he is an amazing litigation attorney. I mean, I never want to be on the other end of his cross-examination. There were times when he would finish cross and I would be like, and I'm like, is anybody else going to clap? Anybody? Like, I would just be like, that was insane. And I just soaked up everything he did. I mean, he was just incredible. And then when I started my practice, it was Brad Cohen, who's an amazing criminal defense attorney in Broward. I mean, he gave me office space in his office, didn't charge me for office space, and he fed me all of the misdemeanor cases that came in his office. Our arrangement was, if he gave me office space, I took the misdemeanor cases and did coverage work for him. He wouldn't charge me. So he really helped me grow my business. His mom, who is amazing, was my accounts receivable. So she would, if anybody owed me money, nobody got past Marlene. No one got past Marlene Cohen. So Marlene collected for me. She always made sure I got paid, made sure that my practice was running well financially. And then from there, I would say the next biggest influence was and has been Tarlika Navarro, who is now, she was my best friend that I was paddleboarding with that I told you about. And she is now a circuit court judge in Broward County, Florida. So I like to say that my firm makes judges. But she pushed me out of my comfort zone. So when Tarlika and I started working together, I was very set in my ways. I mean, I had the way I did billing. I had the way I did my forms. I had the way I marketed and advertised, even down to the credit card terminal. I had that. And I was very content in the way that the business was structured. And she constantly came to me and was like, if we're going to grow this firm, we have to evolve with what's going on. She's like, you're billing. She's like, no offense. We need to up it. You know, we need software. We need programs. We need this. We need that. We need a marketing team. And I remember just looking at her one day and I'm like, you're so insane. We don't need any of this. We're fine the way we are. I was so resistant to change. Tarlika has been on the bench for 2 years now. And I will say that all of the things that she forced me to do have been the reason why the firm has progressed to where it's at today. And I'm sorry, Tarlika, that I gave you such a hard time. I'm so sorry. But you know what? I was so blessed to have her to push me. And it's hard. I mean, imagine, you're working with your best friend and they're pushing you right out of your comfort zone every single day. And I was like, I thought this was supposed to be fun. But, and I really do credit her because I know that's why she was put in, partly in my life. So I thank her for that.
Well, there's definitely a theme here, and that is you resist, but you are open to it. I mean, you may resist it and need the push, but clearly you implement extremely well. I got to ask something totally different. I know your life well enough to know it's not always positive. You are dealing with some stuff with work, just your field in general. It can be pretty stressful, but you always have a smile on your face. Every person you've talked about, you're like, is amazing. And it's not disingenuous. It's completely genuine, you guys. Like, this is how you show up. How do you do that? Because you're clearly dealing with stress all the time at work, yet you are smiling almost the entire way through. How do you do it?
I've learned how to set boundaries.
All right.
That was one of the biggest things that I learned when Tarlika and I started the practice together. When I originally started practicing law, I did criminal defense work, and now I practice family law. It's so different. So the saying is that criminal defense are people at their worst, but with their best foot forward, and family law are good people with their worst foot forward. And it's so true. When you're representing somebody who's up on criminal charges, they are like on their best behavior. They are they're trying to do everything by the book. They don't want to get any more trouble. If you don't hear from them, no news is good news type thing. I switched over to doing family law. And when Tarlika and I partnered up, because she had a long history and experience with criminal defense work. She was a prosecutor and then became a criminal defense attorney. So she started taking over all the criminal cases that we got into the firm and had. And then I started focusing really on the family law because I had some practice with that. And I really wanted to start growing those skills. And that was such a huge transition for me because I went from clients not really ever calling me to clients calling me every minute of the day and emailing and, really getting enthralled and involved in people's lives and their issues, right? And family law is one of those unique areas of the law that, you've got people and their lives are being pulled apart. They've been in an intact marriage, living in a routine with kids, maybe without kids, and sharing a home and assets and liabilities. And now that's being torn apart. So you're coming in and you're having to sometimes diffuse a situation, comfort them, let them know it's going to be okay. You're going to advise them. You're going to make sure that they are okay at the end of the day. Helping them manage their kids now. They've gone from having 2 parents in a household to just 1. So now they're a single parent. Some of them don't know what that's going to look like. And then doing paternity cases as well. I represent people who have never been married, but have a child or children in common. And family law is very deadline intensive. There's a lot of procedure. There's a lot of deadlines. And that's different than criminal. So there was just so much change and transition when I changed practice areas of law. And I really struggled for a while. I was on my phone 24/7. I never took time for myself. I didn't take vacation. I felt like if I took vacation, something would happen to my clients. I was scared that if I wasn't there all the time, that I would lose all of my clients. My practice ended up consuming my entire being. And I went through a really, really, really hard time. And, I sat down and I said, how do I have longevity doing what I'm doing? And the only way to have longevity is to set boundaries. So I had to set boundaries with my business, with clients, hey, after a certain time every day, I have a family too. So I have to spend time with my family. My personal life deserves attention as well. And when I started doing that and blocking time off, right? So taking, whether it's a Friday, a month off, or planning a trip, a couple months in advance, knowing that I have something to look forward to and I can recharge, because if I'm not recharged and patient for my clients, I'm useless to my clients, right? So making sure that I take care of myself first, because if I'm healthy and mentally well, then I can be healthy and mentally well for my clients. So that's one of the things I had to learn, I would say, in the last 2 years. This is recent. This is not something that that I've been doing my entire 10 years of practice. It's really been the last 2 years I've had to learn that.
Well, I will say, I know a fair amount of, way more attorneys, but how do I say this without offending? I know a lot of attorneys. They are not all as happy as you are. And it's just something that's unique. And I think it's pretty amazing. And keep it up, because you bring so much light to this world. All right. Do we have time for the Florida bar loan story? I mean, yes. It's you lit up when that came. So this has to be pretty good. So,
okay. So basically, I told myself, and I believe I manifest. So I believe in manifesting what you want every day, affirmation, gratitude. I practice this every day. So I am determined to find the blessings throughout my life from my failure. And that I've had other failures. I mean, I don't win every trial and I don't win every hearing. I'm not, it's life, and judges make decisions. And at the end of the day, things sometimes are out of my control, right? Facts and circumstances are out of my control. So going back to the bar loan. So I take out that bar loan, like I stated earlier, and we're going through with everything that's been going on with like COVID and everything like that. So I wanted to take out a line of credit for the business, because I also do a lot of personal injury work, and I wanted to take out a line of credit for the business. So I had it in case, God forbid something happened. I always think something's going to happen. That's just how I am. It could be gloom or doom at any moment. It's just how I operate. It's probably what keeps me Successful people tend to do that, they say, but it's to not have it take over all your thoughts, but it's hard sometimes. But anyways, so I said, all right, I want to go and I want to take out this line of credit so I have it in case something happens. And I have been banking with one bank in particular since I was 18. So I go to them. And it's a big bank. So they don't give you, unless you're a multi-million-dollar corporation, they're not giving you much attention. They kind of shuffle you around. We'll get back to you. Don't bother calling us type of thing. I'm like, great. So I get in the car and I'm like, who can I go to that would actually maybe pay attention to me? So I start thinking, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Citibank because that's who gave me my Florida bar loan when I had nothing. Like I literally had nothing to my name. So I go back, I go to Citibank and I'm sitting there with one of the bankers and he is like, okay, they're going through the financials for the firm. He's like, everything looks great. He puts me in the computer and he goes, oh, you had a Florida bar loan from us back in 2009 and you paid it all off. We'll give you the loan, no problem. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. Approved, no problem. You got it. Have a great day. And I'm like, did that just happen? It really just happened. And I had gone to so many different banks, just people shuffling you around. Nobody's calling you back. Nobody's helping you really. They're giving you half advice. And it literally came back to, well, you had taken a Florida bar loan from us, 10 years ago.
There's the blessing.
And there was the blessing in it.
I'll be damned. That's funny. All right, so I asked you to be here, but what if you could leave the audience? What would you want to say? Just like, JM, you should have asked me this. You didn't. I want to leave the audience with this.
You asked me earlier how I always manage to keep a smile on my face, and I said boundaries. I think another facet to that is finding the positivity in every negative or bad situation that you come into. I know sometimes it's hard to see that, but if you can look for a blessing or an opportunity to learn or grow or a silver lining, I think that is what will keep you positive going through life. Not everything that happens that didn't work out in your favor is because your karma's off or you're a bad person or you didn't deserve it. Sometimes the universe or God, whatever it is that you believe in, has to tell you no or wait or be patient. So it's really, if you feel like you get put on hold or you get told wait or you get told be patient, understanding that at some point in your life, you are going to figure out the reason why, and it will all come to be. So just be patient with the journey, trust the path.
That's great advice, and it doesn't always make sense at the time, but it always ends up making sense. So whether it's working with you in law or just connecting with you, is there a great place for people to find you online?
Yes, absolutely. You can connect with me on my website. It's www.litigationsouthflorida.com. All my information's on there. There's a direct box to send me an email, a message. I'm always in the office. There's always someone there. So if you need to get in touch with me, you can call me. There's somebody that answers my office phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I will get back in touch with you and I will make time to talk to whoever it is that reaches out to me.
That's awesome. Well, Nish, as a friend, thank you for being here. But, this was fun. This is why I love podcasts, because I know a lot about you and I didn't know half of those stories because I don't ask these questions. Thank you for sharing. It was amazing.
Thank you for having me.
No, truly, it was our pleasure to have her on. You guys, until next time, continue transcending life. And if you get a chance, go to letsgowin.com. There's a work-life balance worksheet. It's free to you. I do it at least once a month to check in, make sure my work-life balance is in line. Like Nisha was talking about earlier, set those boundaries. Check it out. It's free to you. And guys, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendentLifePodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson. taking you from fear to freedom.